Guten Tag! So today we are going to look at, not the first, not the second, but the third wave from groove synthesis. Now, this is an instrument that has had a lot of buzz around it. I was really interested to try one out, and we have one here. So we're going to listen to some custom sounds I've made within a musical context. We're going to go over the headline features and functions, and we're going to find out whether it's as exciting as it seems. So the third wave is a wavetable synthesizer. Now, wavetable technology goes back further than you may realise, but for the purposes of this video, we're going to jump to the late 70s when Wolfgang Palm of PPG in Germany developed his version of it, which really became the definitive way to do it. So the principle was that you have a bunch of single cycle waveforms stored consecutively in memory, and the first thing that allowed you to do was cycle through them and therefore have dozens and dozens of different waves available at the oscillator level rather than just the usual suspects you get on analog oscillators. But things got way more interesting when he developed a way to modulate and morph between those waves, creating that distinctive wavetable effect. Now, as well as developing this form of wavetable synthesis, Wolfgang then started making instruments to utilise this technology, which ultimately culminated in the PPG Wave series, which are incredibly famous and still very sought after to this day. And those instruments really put wavetable synthesis on the map in a big way, used by a huge number of very well-known artists whose names are flying up the screen as I speak. Now, the PPG Wave went up to version 2.3, which is why this is called the third wave, because it picks up where those instruments left off and runs with it. So at the oscillator level, you've got 32 of the PPG wavetables in all their gritty lo-fi glory, and in fact you can engage and disengage some settings like wave flow and the PPG envelope shapes to get the third wave to behave like those original instruments with all the quirks, charms and flaws. There are then 64 locations available for your own wavetable creations, and I will show you how to do that a bit later. The instrument comes with 48 high-resolution wavetables loaded in there, and those are bespoke creations for the third wave, but you can replace those. You've got modelled analog waveforms, and through the oscillator settings you can do linear FM. So there's absolutely piles of stuff there just at the oscillator level, and for each of the 24 voices there are 3 oscillators. So you could have 72 wavetables going off at once if you were an absolute lunatic. So you've got loads of complexity at the oscillator level, and then after that you've got an entire synth. So for each of the 24 voices, there are 2 filters in series. You've got a digital 2-pole state variable filter, very much like the Oberheim SEM filter behind me. Then you've got an analog 4-pole low-pass filter with saturation, which is an SSI 2140, which harks back to the fact that a couple of the original PPG machines had SSM filters in them, also designed by Dave Rossum. You've then got 4 ADSR envelopes per voice, and those can loop. And then you've got 3 wave envelopes, which are the more complex envelopes that you can use for modulating through the wavetable, but you can use them for other things as well. And there's a wave surfer as well, by the way, which is quite a cool feature where you can move through the wave on the fly and then reset it. For each of the voices, there are 4 LFOs with all the mod cons. There's dual effects, arpeggiator, sequencer, and at the heart of the instrument is a mod matrix where you can route pretty much anything you want to pretty much anything you want, and it's a really simple source and destination type affair. Plus, there's more which I will talk about in a moment. So where the instrument then goes much further is when you get to this rather innocuous section in the corner called multi-part. This instrument is 4-part multi-timbral, and that is why they gave it 24 voices with all the analog and digital components required to pull that off. So when you use all 4 of those parts, you've still got 6 voices on each, plus there are 4 stereo pairs on the back, and you can route voices to them. You can of course do keyboard splits and stacks and layers and all that kind of stuff as well. So what I thought would be interesting to do is set up 4 different sounds, use the sequencer to control them all, take them out of the outputs and then run them through some outboard and see what that sounds like. Okay, so as promised, let's make our own wavetable. So you can do this on a computer and then bring it in over USB, or you can sample directly into the back of the unit, which is what I'm going to do. So the manual talks you through how to do it and gives you all the instructions and the details. So I'm going to make a sound on my modular synth with lots of movement and motion in it. So there's lots of different potential single cycle waveforms in there. Sounds like this. Now let's stick that into the back of the third wave and see if we can make a wavetable. So we press the Make Waves button, and then we're going to arm recording and play in the sound. When we stop playing, it stops. I probably could have done it a little bit louder, but we can check it's there, and it is. And you can now set the start and end points to find an interesting section to extract waves from. Sounds good. You can play with the wave sensitivity, and then you make a table, and it does it for you. As you can see, pretty quick. We'll try it out. And there it is. It works dead easy. And just like the other wavetables that were already in here, you can cycle through all the individual waveforms as well. So let's just make a quick patch with the custom wavetable we just recorded. So there we go, the third wave from Groove Synthesis. Now, in my opinion, there is absolutely a place in the market for an instrument that does lots of different things and offers you a buffet of things you can do. But there's then a place in the market for the opposite of that, which is an instrument that takes a concept or a form of sound generation and then just goes with that in great depth and has an interface that allows you to interact with that in the most intuitive way possible. And yes, you can do some other stuff with this, and that stuff is actually pretty impressive too, but the focus is it's a wavetable synthesizer, and a flipping good one, really easy to use. Everything's on the panel. There then may be a page 2 with a few really easy to understand settings for each of them. I don't think I read the manual at all other than to find out some details about the wave maker, so really straightforward. What's the challenge making a video with this thing is you set all your patch up and then you just hold a chord or even a note and all this stuff happens. And that doesn't look very good on a video because you want to make it look like you're doing all this stuff, but you're not. The instrument's doing it for you. So a hell of a thing, I think. It's not cheap, but in my opinion, you get what you pay for. But obviously, make up your own mind in that respect. Huge thank you to Groove Synthesis for sending this over. And thank you very much to you for watching.